Hello and welcome to the Beatport podcast. I'm your host Tigerlight, and today we're talking to Chloé, a composer and DJ who's been enticing dance floors for almost 2 decades. This well-respected Parisian has earned her stripes in all her different guises, including that now of a label head for Lumière Noire. In this podcast, we get geeky talking software and hardware and her different setups for writing. Hear about some of her diverse and inspiring artistic collaborations, from the British Film Institute scoring the music to Hitchcock's last silent film, or her step towards science with the French Institute for Music and Sound, and much more. So pop on the kettle, get comfy, as Beatport presents a conversation with Chloé. You're joining us today from Paris.
Yeah, exactly. I live in Paris. Where are you?
I'm in Berlin.
Okay, but you're English.
I am English, yes. I'm half English, half Finnish-Swedish.
Okay, cool.
Tell me about Paris. How long have you been based there?
I'm a real Parisian, actually. I was born and raised in Paris. I never really moved, actually, from Paris. I lived maybe 3 years in Marseille, south of France, for... Just 3 years, yes. And my mom, she's English. My father is French, but I've always been in France. I was living in Paris the whole time, actually. So I really saw the city changing, and actually all my life is in Paris. So I felt maybe at one point I should move, you know. There was a time I was thinking about Berlin, or like a few years ago. But then... I saw that many people was moving to Berlin, and I felt like, anyway, my life is in Paris, and I felt really good in Paris. I mean, I love this city because I move all the time with my job, so it's okay.
So you've got all your friends there that you grew up with, and it's really home.
I mean, it's a big city, and it's really... it's tough also, and it's kind of expensive, and there are many people everywhere, but I kind of find my way, you know. I feel really comfortable in this city, so it's fine.
What's the environment like for electronic artists in Paris? Like, is it welcoming? What are the studio rates like, you know, for artists to live in Paris? How is that?
That's a good question. I mean, this is mainly one of the reasons I was thinking to move to Berlin, because there was a time I couldn't find any flat, and I couldn't find any studio for music producing. So I was producing in my headphones or going in some studio friends. And so this was one of the reasons I wanted to move to Berlin. I mean, it was because of money. But then I find a flat, and then I find a nice studio, actually, which is a friend's one. And... I mean, it's as I was saying before, you have to find your way, you know. If you really follow the thing, like you try to find the rent for a studio to make music, it's kind of difficult in Paris because it's very expensive. And but if you start to think with sharing your studio with someone else because you was on tour and all this, then it can be smart. And it can be good and helpful for everyone, you know. So a lot of people in Paris are helping each other with this. A lot of people are doing their own studio also in their home, which is not so good with the neighbors. But I mean, this is the way it is. I like to have a studio because I got the studio as if I was going to the office. But on the other hand, I like the idea not to produce some music absolutely in the moment where you're in the studio, because there's kind of a pressure that is on you. Like, okay, now you are here, you have the studio, so you have to produce and find ideas. Sometimes it's really cool, and sometimes you have some pressure also, you know. So I kind of developed something like on tour. Like I like to find some ideas with my software in the computer, with just some few softwares that I have. And I like this idea to be limited, you know, on the computer. And then you can find some cool ideas. And sometimes then when I'm in the studio, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm gonna develop it. And this is like, this is the good balance I find with the studio and going outside the studio.
What are you using that's kind of your go-to bits of software when you're writing like that?
I'm using Live Ableton 10, and I think the tools now are really good, and the development is really, really strong, I think. I really like a lot Max MSP that is included in Live. I mean, it used to be not included in Live for a while, so it was more complicated. but now it's inside, and you can find a lot of tools if you go, and you can download a lot of Max MSP like little tools built by other people also. So I like to find some new stuff like this. So you have a lot of synthesizers and like drum machines and some other effects that are more or less interesting. And also I'm using, for example, for all the delays and reverb, I like this, it's called Santoys. It's a cool tool to use, to add. Then I have a lot of native stuff, like Reactor, which is really, that goes really deep in the sound. I like a lot also to use Contact, and there's an Absent also, FM8. I mean, there's a bunch of tools like this that I use, and then when I'm back in the studio, I have those in the studio, and I have also some hardwares, which is cool also to use inside the studio. And I'm using also UAD card, where I have a lot of effects on it, which are really powerful, like this culture vulture thing, like to add some distortion, or this kind of a great tool that gives you a specific sound to the sound and to give it more organic somehow. So, and then I can add also some guitar or vocal or bass line, whatever, in my studio if I want to record, and this is the main purpose of a studio. But actually I could also work wherever. There are some time where I don't work in the studio because I don't want to be in the studio, and I just work at home with a headphone. You just need a good headphone, and then it's okay.
And you also play guitar, don't you?
I'm not very serious in playing guitar, honestly. I've been playing for a very long time, because I started to play guitar when I was 15, and that was before going into electronic music. But this was my first approach with music. So I started to I was listening to some vinyl records because of my father's collection that he had a lot of old vinyls, so I just wanted to reproduce what I was hearing. And when you have a guitar, it's much easier to learn than piano, because piano I guess you have to take lessons, and it's if you want to go a little bit deep.
That's interesting, because on the other hand, you could say, I found this anyway, that if you don't really press on the frets, then you can't get the note to be in tune. So for me anyway, I think the piano is easier.
Do you play the piano?
Yeah, I play piano, and it's in tune straight away basically, unless the actual piano is out of tune.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you find that guitar is easier.
Well, to know a little bit, the basic things, I guess. Probably if you play the piano, you understand more things about the basic, about music, and about all the notes, and solfège. I don't know if it's the same word in English. Yeah,
solfa or solfège. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Yeah. Yes, then this is how I learned, and this is where I discovered, how to make a chord, and do in French, and it's C in English and international. These are the basic thing that I learned. You can listen, and you can hear that on the guitar. If you do this note here, it's the same note on another chord. So now it's interesting. But I didn't learn guitar to be a real guitarist or whatever. It's just I wanted to experiment and hear stuff, and I was very quickly interested by doing some little composition, just getting some harmony and finding some nice chords going. This was my first real approach with music, actually. And then I discovered also some 4-tracks mixer, and then I saw that I could add some music I could record one guitar, then make another one, and then make a vocal, and then make some noise, whatever. And then it was a track. That was like, wow, it's amazing. Like with a 4-track mixer, you can produce a track, you know. And then when I discovered electronic music, and I wanted to know how to produce some electronic music, because I was like, wow, what's this music? It's amazing. And then when I understand how to make music, I mean, at that time it was with computers and gears. There was not like software so developed like as it is today. And I saw that it was like a 4-track mixer, but much more developed. So it was, for me, it was just a continuity. So since my first EP that was out in 2001, I was always adding a little bit of textures and, you know, like some more organic sounds with some electronic sounds. And I mean, this was for me like the natural step, like trying to make all sound like a unity and find a harmony in this older production.
And it carries through into all of your music, which is it's so warm and it's full of feeling. I hear a story inside each one. You've been listening to Because It's There from Chloé's new album, Endless Revisions. You've been doing some film composing, done a full feature, right?
Yeah, I didn't do so much. I just did like my first long feature last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing more, like I was doing first some short movies and some for a French director called Lydia Leberterki. She did like four short movies and one that was nearly long. And then she asked me to do her first long feature that was last year. And it was a story based between Kabylie and France. And she wanted me to work with some Kabyle instruments and some Kabyle musicians. And so I was a bit surprised because I would not be the first person to ask to do this, you know.
How did you research the background of Kabyle music to make sure the compositions were authentic?
Lydia, the director, she put me in contact with some musicians, and I met some amazing musicians. One who was playing, he was a singer, and I made him listen some music that I liked, and I wanted to understand which instrument was some of the music I was hearing, but I couldn't know exactly the name. So I asked him, what is this instrument, these instruments. We've chosen a list of like some instruments, like the oud and the mandol, and the oud and the mandol sounds it's like the guitar, but it sounds a little bit different,
like a lute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really Kabyle and it's Algerian instruments. And I was thinking to use mainly the oud because this was the main instrument that we all know from the Algerian music, you know. And then I understood that there were some other alternatives that were really interesting and that the sound was a little bit different, like the mandol. The mandol is a medieval music instrument that is used in the Algerian music. And in general, when the musicians do music, they don't write the music actually, like they express the music, and then the younger person has to remember the music, and this is a question of giving the music from generation to generation, you know. And I find it really interesting and beautiful somehow that this music is spread this way and it's not written. This is really part of their culture. So the mandol is used mainly in Kabyle music and Shaabi music, as we say. So I discovered like a whole world, and there was another instrument that is called zorna. It's very, very loud, but it looks like a flute, but you have to really push and put some air, very, very, and it's really, very loud. So in the traditional Kabyle music, it is used a lot. I had someone doing a mandol and oud, someone doing zorna, and this other person was singing. And so they came to my studio, and I already had some music, and I made them listen to music, and they just played on it and played in the same way. And just like, you know, it's like in jazz, you know, like you play more or less the same pattern, but then after a while, the musician finds some little alternative. And this was the interesting thing, and this is what I really liked. And this is something that is very different from more the European music, where usually when you record something, you ask them to do this and they do this. Of course, they can go a little bit in some other field, but here with Kabyle music, they are really into like giving something from themselves. And so it was an amazing moment. And then after this performance, like I've edited and I added also some other stuff and I produced it, and this is how I did the music for this movie. And so I found some other ideas after that I put in some other places in the movie, and it was really interesting. I mean, if I was not asked to do this music, I would definitely, probably never had experienced this collaboration with Kabyle musicians. But so I take it as a chance, and it was really interesting. And I really like the fact that they gave so much. I was really touched by this, actually.
And then you went on to score the music for Hitchcock's last silent film, Blackmail. Do you want to move into this field and do more of that? I mean, these are amazing projects that you've been involved with.
Yeah, actually, I was asked by the Cinémathèque of Paris. They asked me actually to if I wanted to do some a live performance on Blackmail, and so they asked me if I wanted to make a live show there. So I did perform at Cinémathèque in Paris. It was then done in some like music festivals, like in Switzerland, Geneva, for international film festival. I did it also like in other mainly in some film festivals. Because it's a moment where they have music and also celebrating some Hitchcock movie. So I really enjoy, because there was a time where there was some people doing music with a piano, like very long time ago when there was the silent movie, and I find it interesting to do something with all the gears we can have today with electronic music and trying to make something. The interesting thing also was to try to take not too much space in the music, because it's Hitchcock, you know. So I could not take too much space in the music, you know. And also because Hitchcock in his other movie, he's also using sometimes the silence. And so I wanted to find also some moment, like for example, there's a moment where there's a crime scene, and I wanted to remember some famous crime scene from Hitchcock's when there was no music at all. So for example, I didn't put any music at just this moment, as Hitchcock would have done it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really different from writing for yourself as an artist, right? Or writing for the dance floor. It's a completely different way of thinking artistically.
Yes.
Do you want to do any more of this?
I actually have regularly some things like this. I really love it, but I love it because I still also have some gigs as DJ on the dance floor, or I still perform my live shows, or I'm also producing some remixes for other people, friends, producers, whoever. So I kind of find my balance this way. But if I was only doing some music for movies, or only doing this kind of performance on silent movie, honestly, I would be not really interested.
You need to mix it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun just to not make just loops to a whole week, you know, and to wait the weekend to make loops, because otherwise you get crazy just making loops. Even I love loops.
This track was originally by Monkey Safari called Matters. This is the Chloé remix. Beatport podcast. Something else I want to know about your collaboration with IRCAM, the French Institute for Music and Sound Science. Your bio says it saw you delving into musical analysis encompassing everything from electroacoustics to spectral school. Can you elaborate? It sounds fascinating. What was that project?
It sounds like, huh?
Yeah.
It's well written, huh?
Yeah, it sounds really good. I've got music scientist written on my notes next to your name.
No, the fact is that again, it was something that I was asked, and it was an honor, of course. I was asked by IRCAM, which is the Institute of Research of Sound, which is one of those in Paris. It's based in Paris, and they were looking for an artist to perform for Fête de la Musique. Performance live by using new web technologies they were developing. And so they wanted to have a meeting with me to discuss and develop something, and then at the end to do a live performance. So I was working for a long time, not a long time, but on this project for kind of a whole year with IRCAM, to develop like how the people can interact with the music of an artist. So we tried some things. So we were with some smartphones, pretending we were the public, and looking for which sounds could the artist send, for example, on the telephone. And as an artist, we were like I was thinking to have some iPad to use the iPad and to make the sound grow in the public, and by touching it, this was like an interactive live performance, and it was creating kind of a musical sequence, a collective musical sequence with the telephone and the artist. So this was done like 2 or 3 times, and it was very interesting. But again, this was something that was asked, and I was really interesting. It was really interesting, of course, to work with some very interesting sound engineer and people that are developing it. It's Norbert Schnell, which is he was the person in charge of this main big project. And so besides this, I found it really interesting because the sound was not just only stereophonic, it was like multiphonic, because each mobile phone were used as an instrument to spread the sound. So this was like really interesting. I think there's something to do in it. It's not totally it's something in process to, it's a IRCAM by definition. They are like researching, so it's not something that it's fixed. It's just part of a whole process they are working on.
How did this project affect your writing in the studio for you as Chloé?
So it's interesting because at that time I was working with my friend's producer called Nova Materia, and they just released an album on a crammed disc just this month actually. And my friends, they are doing more like rock, electronic rock, alternative sonic music, and I was working a little bit with them on the production of their music. And it's interesting because while I was doing this with IRCAM, I was working with them, and they are only working with hardwares, no computer, no softwares. They're just like with MPCs, guitars, pedals, and sounds, and whatever. And I really loved it, like the day like I was working with IRCAM and then I was working with them, it was really like the opposite way of working. This is what made me really interesting, So then I thought, and it was a time when I was thinking about my live, how to technically do my live, and I thought, okay, I don't want to do the live with a computer. So I developed, this is how actually the whole thing started with my live. Like I want a live with no computer, so I just have some gears, you know. And so this is how it helped me to go into this kind of decision, which doesn't mean I go against all this technology. I find it really interesting, you know. But I had this desire to go into something more pure, something more radical somehow.
You're currently touring your new album as 100% hardware, right?
Yeah, exactly, totally. Yes, I'm touring mainly with I have like MPC, I have like a TR8 and a bunch of pedals and two synthesizers, and I also tour with some digital scenographer and who does the mapping called Collective Scale. So it's like it's a show actually. So it's been a year now we're touring with this live show, and it's really really cool. I like it because it's something also different and that goes a little bit further than the club scene. But I love it because also I still continue to DJ and do all this stuff, you know. So it's just a continuity of my album, and you know, just finding some ways to express it and use it and confront it with the public.
And that's Endless Revisions, the album that you're touring right now.
Exactly. So this is why we call the live also Endless Revisions.
Yeah. And have you had any major technical hiccups where you've gone like, nothing's working? Or has it all gone smoothly? Well, mainly it's okay, but I have a sound engineer helping me on the tour, and he's very helpful because there's a lot to do to prepare, you know. Just before you just press play on the stuff. You have to make the cables. There's always something not working, so you always have to be really patient, you know. It's not if as I have a computer, like you open the computer then it's fine. No, it's like all these things has to work. And there's always something. So there was some problems sometimes with the MIDI or this stuff, but I kind of like it, you know. It's like I kind of respect sometimes some DJs who are playing with vinyls, and sometimes you can hear the vinyl that is like not working very well. I kind of like this kind of imprecision because it's like that you can hear that it's not perfect, but this is the live show. It's part of the story. I think you have to accept that it's like this, you know. MIDI synchronization doesn't work perfectly, but this is the way it is. I kind of like it, you know. You feel it, and somehow also it's more creative also for me to play this way, because I've thought of the live in a way to make it more intuitive and to make it really creative, because there's a lot of parts where I build the live in direct, you know. There are some sounds that of course are pre-recorded, but there's the whole structure is not prepared, so I'm building it in direct, and this is also something that I caught from the DJ set. You know, in the DJ set there's a lot of excitement because you don't know where you go, but the people and the moment where you are tells you the direction, and this is what I like, and this is part of the whole process. So I find it really interesting. So you're switching up the direction of the set list, like watching the crowd as well?
Yes, it's just like the construction of the live show. I mean, the set list is more or less done. I mean, I know which tracks I'm going to play, but it's never played the same way.
The same order.
This is what I like.
Very cool.
Yes,
very
I mean,
cool.
it's mainly I'm mainly talking about the structure of each track than the order of the set list. Of course, I can change the set list the way I want, but I'm mainly talking about the structure. The structure is always different.
Okay.
And this is creative.
So you're keeping the breakdowns going longer, or keeping the drop going
exactly.
longer, or the vocal. Or
exactly. Sometimes I make the live more weirdo. Sometimes I make it more club. Sometimes I make it more crazy. Sometimes I make it low, like oniric, whatever.
This is Lauer with Pytha, taken from the Lumière Noire Presents From Above Volume 1. Where are you going to be playing in the next couple of months with this show?
So my main gig in Paris will be in January. It will be at Élysée-Montmartre. So this is going to be a big one for me because the last time I played with my live show in Paris was last January. Then I was touring the whole time. So I'm playing in Istanbul, I'm playing in Metz. I also have another project with a Marimba player. Another musician, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the Marimba is a beautiful instrument with beautiful harmonies, and it's like an African xylophone with a special resonance, and it comes from Latin
America.
Thank you.
No worries, don't worry.
Oh my God, my mom is English, you know, and I don't speak very well English. That's really bad.
No, everyone's going to love your accent. Don't worry about it.
Very French accent, super.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I have a duo project with a marimba player, and we are developing it since a year, and we are in the process of finishing an album that will be released hopefully next year. And so we are touring a lot also on this project, which is great too because it's another project and it's another duo and it's something else. And this is 100% live show because nothing is prepared and all is based with the sample and the way the marimba player plays. And I sample her and add some effects and some synthesizer and she plays on it. And, you know, we construct the live like this together, and it's really, really interesting, and I love this too.
That sounds beautiful. How did you connect with the marimba player? How did that come together?
Actually, again, something where I was asked 2 years ago. There's a collective called Sourd Oreille. It's a French collective, and they have a TV program called Variation, where they ask some producer in the electronic scene to collaborate with some musicians on the contemporary or classical scene, and they ask us to collaborate and they gave us a theme. So I was asked to collaborate with this marimba player, Vasilena Serafimova, who is an amazing marimba player, percussionist, and we were asked to play a tribute to Steve Reich. And so we decided to focus on one of a major work from Steve Reich, which is called Music for 18 Musicians. And so we were supposed to produce a live show, a 20 minutes live show, and then it was recorded for like TV. And so the idea was to be inspired by Steve Reich. So, of course, this music is for 18 musicians, and we are two, and we can't play exactly the same thing. So it's kind of a live show where we play some patterns of music for 18 musicians, and then we improvise on it. But it's really inspired by this show. And because after this performance, we thought that it was kind of frustrating to stop the story like this, so we thought like we should probably try to perform together and build a live show like of 1 hour. So after this, we were invited by the French artist Xavier Veillant at the Biennale of the Venice Biennale last year. In his project called Studio Venezia, and he built a studio where we could perform, and this is where we built our live show, 1 hour live show. And since this residency we have for a week there, we are touring live. Like in many places. So we usually start the show with this tribute to Steve Reich, and then we go in some of our own productions.
So if people want to find you, what's the name of that project?
It's Chloé and Vasilena Serafimova. And like we played last Wednesday, we played in London at the Jazz Cafe. and we are performing quite regularly since a year in some diverse places. So we will be in Angers in 2 weeks, and we were last Saturday we were playing in Cité de la Musique for the Nuit Blanche, and so yeah, we will be playing in some other places next year. And so the story continues, you know.
It sounds amazing, and I definitely want to come and check that out. Now, you have your own label, which is celebrating its first birthday. Happy birthday. It's now my turn to have a terrible accent, but I'm going to try.
I'm good.
Lumière Noire. How's that?
Perfect.
You say that the label is an entity pitched somewhere between a club night and a record label. Could you go into this a little bit more, the concept behind the label?
Actually, I started with the name of Lumière Noire because it was the name of my residency at Rex Club, so in Paris. And then I had a strong identity graphic designer from my graphic designer called Dunenel, which was doing a great job. And the idea was just like, I thought the more I was doing the parties, the more I felt like I wanted to do a label and do something that is really focusing on the artist I was inviting and that I meet. And because of all these projects I'm doing, also I meet so many talented people who I would love to collaborate with, but sometimes it's like just I can't do music with them, but I just like the music, you know. So it's kind of a reason, or I would say an excuse to ask some. It's a very selfish thing somehow. It's like an excuse to ask some artists I really love or I really respect to be part of my label. And also because sometimes I hear some new producers and doing some music that I love, who I love the music. They're not famous, whatever, but I just love their music and their identity, and I just want to spread it. So it's just, for me, the label is a continuity of the DJ job somehow, because when you DJ, you search for a lot of music. You're always looking for some music, and this is my first job. This is the first thing I was doing too when I started to DJ. It's always like searching for some music and playing it. And so the label allows me to release some of these talented artists. And somehow I have the feeling that, okay, I'm doing all these other projects and there's a lot of diverse things, but somehow there's a unity. I mean, the unity is that it's me. So, I mean, of course, there's like every person. You can love one kind of music, but I also love other style of music that I don't play, you know. So all this multiplicity of style and all this, the unity for me is Lumière Noire, is the label. So for me, it's this excuse to find this unity and harmony inside the label. And I find it really exciting. And for me, it's really like going further with the DJing. And then also it's so exciting to ask some artists you really, really respect to remix one artist you discovered. And to then to wait the Saturday and to play the track that the artist you've chosen to remix the track. And you love the music and you can feel on the dance floor that the music is really really good and it's great, and so makes me believe that I want to continue to do this.
You've got a compilation coming out called From Above Volume 1, and I would say that you've definitely hit that goal of what you just said, of the unity, and that you are bringing everything together. The name of the label is bringing everything together, but there's definitely a sound that each track next to each other like fits. They feel like a family of tracks that should be together. Well,
I'm glad you say that. Thank you. It means that somehow I was understood. I could have done something with One Direction, of course, and it would also have made sense somehow. But okay, I just have some artists I loved and I really respect and that I want, and I have the feeling. I mean, it's like a mix, you know. So, like sometimes when I do a radio show for Rinse or something, sometimes I go in some other fields that I don't go when I just DJ. So I'm sure I find a unity with all this music and all these tracks, and there was like, for example, this artist called Jonathan Fitoussi on the compilation, and his track is probably one of the coolest and deepest and with no beats music, and I really love this music. I mean, he released 2 albums on Versatile. There was one that was just released, and I really loved his music. And I met him, it's this kind of example. Like I met Jonathan when I was in Studio Venezia in Venice in this studio I was talking to you earlier, where I had the chance to go in the Venice Biennale to record some music and prepare our duo show with Vasilina Serafimova. And probably if I was not doing this duo, I would probably not have met Jonathan Fitoussi, But it's this kind of story I like, I just like it's really a kind of excitement for me to bring this music into some in one piece somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Like with your One Direction comment, if you are picking proteges or unknown artists, then for the marketing of the record, like how do you kind of manage that as a label?
Well, the point is not to focus at all on the marketing, and because especially nowadays, I mean, there are so many things going on, and there are so many good things, very well done, and probably that I can't do. But what I know is just like I know what I love when I love some music. So for me, it's like I believe into the music first. Whatever the music, I mean, there are some amazing producers that sometimes don't do really bad tracks, and usually do amazing tracks, and there are sometimes really bad tracks. So you just have always to pick in some very talented music that you really love. So I just try to focus first on the music. I mean, for example, there's this artist, French newcomer Morgan Blanc. We released his first EP, Confidence EP, 2 months ago, 2 months and a half ago, and and we received great feedbacks on his EP. I was really like impressed. I was like, wow, it's like he has not really a profile, really. I mean, he's really young and he's like really a newcomer. He's a really good DJ, and I really fall in love with his music, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. I mean, his music was heard, and there are many people that loved his music. So this makes me believe that whatever the name it is, of course the name brings you some light, some lumière, as we say in French. This is where it comes from, maybe. but it helps you, of course, to make you hear something. But then if the music is not good, the people don't follow. So my main goal is whatever the name is just the music mainly that is interesting and should be heard. And this is just about passion,
For you as the label boss, as the person that's running the label, is there anything that you think, okay, I want to strengthen that we've been doing, I think that's really great, but you want to change something else? Like, have you had any sort of big lessons about running a label that have happened this year?
The only thing is that Morgan Blanc was the only artist who we decided not to do vinyls, because it was for us a little bit risky. We thought, okay, maybe it's a little bit risky to because making a vinyl today, you don't earn money with vinyl. Like 10 years ago, you can make money with vinyls, but today if you do vinyls and you sell all your vinyls, then you're happy to be in zero, to have zero, not to lose money. And he was the only artist where we didn't do any vinyls. And then I regret, because I saw that he's got massive feedbacks. So I was like, okay, so maybe I should really follow my real intuition, like I'm always doing. But sometimes you doubt. And I thought, like, okay, I mean, I really feel it, like I have to go into it. I mean, there's not a major thing. It's probably a detail what I'm saying, but it means a lot somehow. I mean, it's really about intuition, and just like whatever the music is, if I have the feeling I can defend it, I should go 100% into it. I mean, this is my main goal, and this is mainly what I want to do.
So his EP was called Confidence
EP.
So yes. Isn't that ironic that his release, that your instinct said I want to put that on vinyl, that you didn't has now given you confidence to put the rest on vinyl. So. But
that's a good one. Wow.
Yeah.
Bim pam boom.
Thank you so much for your time today. Well,
thank you.
I really, really, really love your music, and I'm definitely going to come and check out you playing with the marimba player, because I'm not going to try and pronounce her name because I can't. Maybe you can say it again for me.
Vasilina Serafimova. It took me a while also to say it, but believe me, it's really easy now. I love to say it. It makes me feel very intelligent. Vasilina Serafimova.
Yeah, I'm still not going to try. Is there anything else that I've not asked you that you want to talk to the good listeners of Beatport about?
No, I think we've covered everything. You did a very good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Katerina.
Taken from the EP Confidences, this is Morgan Blank with Always. This is Chloé remix of Dave Clark and Louisa's IVT. Theremin's Boa, taken from the imprint My Favourite Robot Records. This is G-String with Crystal Days, taken from the label Pink Man Broken Dreams.
Beatport Podcast.
You've been listening to the Beatport Podcast in conversation with Chloé. I've been your host Tigerlight. Thanks for listening.
Beatport Podcast.